When the atmosphere is prayer conditioned, anything can happen.
Yes.
And one of the things I want to say, prophetess, that as much as we need folks to pray, we got to go past the place of prayer to the place of intercession. Because prayer just deals with an individual and his relationship with God. But intercession takes you go past yourself.
Right.
Where it's not about you, but it's about what is on God's mind for individuals. Where it's on God's mind for communities, for cities, for nations, for churches, for generations even yet unborn. Where you can buy into the mind of God and download into your spirit and pray through on the earth realm what God has on his mind. Prayer is the vehicle that goes into eternity and takes what exists for the believer in eternity into time. Prayer is the only thing that gives you access into the throne room of the Father to be able to know God's original intent and to be able to pray it down to the earth realm. I want you to hear me carefully, because this is very important. We live in very dangerous time, prophetess. We live in very dangerous time. This country is being threatened by so many things that politicians can handle. The battle that this country and so many nations are facing are spiritual. And the only solution and the answer to some of these problems is the church rising up to the place of intercession. Because there is so much that politicians and our security agents and intelligence can do. It gets to a point and they can't go beyond there. And that is where the church must rise up. The situation in Iraq, for instance, cannot be solved by our soldiers. The church got to rise up as the spiritual army of this nation and declare a ceasefire in the spirit, because it's spiritual warfare. If you look at the First World War, the First World War was orchestrated from the realms of the spirit. There were forces. Everything you see in the world, the good, the bad, and the ugly, there are powers behind the scenes responsible for what's going on. And the church got to take our eyes off the natural and begin to look into the supernatural and find out who is behind this, what's going on, who is behind the situation with South Korea, who is behind this situation with Iran, for instance, provoking this great nation to engage this country in another war. The Third World War, it's not going to be nations fighting against nations. If the church do not pray, it's going to become a religious war. It's going to be a religious war, and that is what the enemy is setting nations for. And the church got to rise up and understand few things. Number one, prophetess, God can do nothing for humanity until somebody prays. It is illegal. Please hear me. It is illegal and it is unlawful for God to act among humanity without intercession. Now the reason is because he gave the earth to man, and man through high treason gave it to Satan. So Satan, 2 Corinthians 4:4, is the God of this world. That explains all the mess going on. That's why you have atheists, people who don't believe in God. And the reason why they don't believe in God, they are sick and tired of hearing just God is a good God, God is a good God, and hearing all this good preaching and see people dying of cancer, seeing young women, young men dying, leaving their kids without being cared for, and then they keep on hearing the same preacher saying God is good and God is a good God. Atheists are not going to get saved because we preach good and we witness. You don't witness to atheists. They must see power. When they see power, that settles the controversy. When it comes to Islam, you don't witness to. I have a lot of folks who have converted from Islam into my church. I was just in Cape Town a few weeks ago in South Africa, in Good Hope Church in Cape Town, and a whole Muslim family, the entire household, got saved the second night when they saw the power of God in action and saw how God healed the child that was dying. When they saw that, the entire family came in and they came to the service and received Christ. The church got to stop. This is the day of Elijah and the day of Mount Carmel. It's let the God that answer by fire be God, or let's forget this then. Because if we can't demonstrate, you see, a good lawyer prophetess does not win his case in court because he's good with the law and because he is articulate. But a good lawyer wins his case by backing his argument with evidence. Now the gospel must have evidence, and the evidence of the gospel is signs, wonders, and miracles. The Bible said, and Jesus taught, and Jesus preached, and Jesus healed the sick, and Jesus cast out devils. If we preach and teach, and we don't heal, and we don't cast out devil, that is not a full gospel. We are joking. And the reason why the world is dying, churches ain't growing, prophetess, like before. People are leaving one church to another church. I mean, we're just transferring people from one church to another. But if we are going to have true conversion and people coming to God, we need the power of God to come back to the church. And the gospel is not principle, prophetess. The gospel is not doctrines. Doctrines and principles is for the church, but the gospel is for the world. And the gospel is not good preaching, and the gospel is not principle. The gospel is not doctrines. The gospel is power. That's what the gospel is, power. The Bible said when Saul on his way to Damascus had an encounter with Jesus, that settled the whole. Nobody preached to Saul. Nobody told him you got to get born again. He meant what we need is encounter. I got saved on the bed of affliction, and I'll tell you how I got saved. I was on marijuana in those days. I wouldn't go to church, and I was crazy. I was just bad. I was born into a family of 43 brothers and sisters. My mother had 6, my father had 37. And I was just crazy among my father's kids. And I was fooling with witchcraft. I was going to the occult, and I was playing with voodoo and everything. And I wouldn't go to church. And one of the reasons was because there was no power in the church. And so that bothered me, and I said, I don't want to have anything to do with this, because the malams, the juju, the occult, they can produce. I mean, they can deliver. You go there, you tell them what they want, they tell you what to do, and you get results. So I didn't want to fool with church. On the bed of affliction, when I lost 3 of my fingers, I was attacked by the enemy, and the enemy commanded me to light a candle and to place my right palm on the flame. And I placed my right hand on the flame, and my hand began to burn. And the enemy said, don't remove your hand till I command you to do so. My lips were sealed. I couldn't take my hands off. And the demons were in my room. I couldn't see them, but they were speaking to me. And I heard them, and I could feel this evil presence weighing me down, and I couldn't scream. I was in pain and in agony. I couldn't take my hands off. On the bed of affliction, Jesus appeared to me and said, I am Jesus. And that settled the issue. Nobody witnessed. I got saved on the bed of affliction. And I said, if you are Jesus, then set me free, because I couldn't sleep for years. I couldn't sleep for days. The enemy wanted me. He was out to kill me. And he said, I will set you free under one condition, that you will preach and witness of my power to the nations. And I said, it's a deal. From that night, I was set free from nightmare, from all those demon spirits that came after my life. They couldn't touch me anymore. From that night, I got saved. Years after, I said, forget it. I wanted to give it all up, and the demons came back again. And Jesus appeared to me and said, we made a deal. You said you serve me. As long as you keep to your side of the bargain, they leave you alone. So I said, okay, you win. You got to understand, folks, it is impossible and it is illegal for God to do anything for nations, for communities, for churches, for humanity until somebody prays. Let me break it down.